Hello everyone, this is CameraFlips, the best place to buy and sell used camera gear. This is episode number 1 of A Photographer's Life, a series of interviews when we talk to the people that made the pictures we love. Our first guest is Yone Liau, an incredibly talented photographer based in Taiwan. Yone chose to specialize in food photography, and during our conversation we explore how she got into photography, how she was able to transform a hobby into a business, and what process she follows to prepare for a job. Yoni also shared a ton of tips and online resources, not only on how to get better at food photography, but at photography in general. Thanks for watching.
Today we have Yone Liau with us, which is, I think it's fantastic. Thank you very much for being, the first one of the show. I know this is going to make, your career absolutely. Everybody will look at it and everybody will be so excited about that. You'll be super thankful. But today I'm super thankful to you. It's a great opportunity for me to actually speak with photographers and understand more about, how they started, what was great about photography for them, what they use, tips and tricks. I think this is really insightful, definitely for me, but I'm sure it can be insightful for a lot of people. Yoni, for I know you a little bit, but I'm sure that other people that watch you today they may not be familiar with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you based, what you do, and so we get the conversation going.
Well, first, thank you so much. I'm really honored to be like the first one. So, it's mutual what's happening. And I'm sure this is going to get a lot of views. Not just this one, hopefully also the other ones. So besides just being super honored on being this first episode. So as you said, I'm Yoni. I'm a food photographer and stylist. I'm currently based in Taipei, Taiwan. But food photography started way before I even got here. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Did I miss a question?
No. It was just like a free question. I think it's fantastic that you're in Taipei. Thank you so much. What time is it in Taipei at the moment? Because I'm based in London. What time is it where you are at the moment?
Right now it's 7:02 Sunday evening.
Okay. Well, that's good. Thank you very much for making it on a Sunday. I think what we'll be very interested in, say, why did you get it? Everyone loves a great picture, right? But not everyone wants to take the time to learn how to take a great picture. What got you? Where did you catch the photography bug? What was the thing that triggered this journey for you?
I wonder I think in part it must have been genetic, because one of my earliest memories was just my father having always like the SLRs, like a Nikon and a Canon. And I remember going with him to take photos. And he even one time when I was 16, he signed me up for like this photography competition. And we were just shooting around like this flower expo area, just shooting flowers. And obviously I did not win a prize, but I just thought it was really interesting. And I really liked playing with the camera, even though I was shooting in auto, but I still felt very professional. So I think from there, I've always kind of been interested in photography, but never actually thought of it turning it into a business. So actually, when I realized that I wanted to be a food photographer, it was a bit like, oh, this all makes sense.
So it runs in your blood, which is fantastic. There was something about playing with those like film camera, the SLR, and some say your dad probably was instrumental in starting the thing. But why food photography? I mean, it's not maybe. I'm sure many people maybe love to take pictures of their friends or of a great landscape, or say why food? I guess way before everybody now is taking picture of other food before eating it, and maybe they don't even eat that. What was the trigger? Why specializing in that?
I think from just traveling around and again coming to realize that I wanted to do food photography was in between from like doing corporate jobs and then trying, because I worked many different jobs before I even hit photography. So I've been maybe a professional photographer about only 2 years officially. Before that, I could just call myself a very intense hobbyist. But even from traveling, it was just always with my camera, I'd always be taking photos of food or like, oh, this is interesting. And recording the travels as well. But the recurring theme was always food. And then I had lots of friends that always told me, wow, your food photos are like really good. It really makes me hungry. And then one time I somehow, I don't know how exactly, I stumbled upon a woman. She was offering a mentorship in food photography. Um, if you sent, she just needed you to fill in a form, and then she was going to pick someone to mentor for free for 6 months. I didn't get the mentorship, but going through the whole process, and even though I didn't get it, I was like, you know what? I really just realized I really love food photography. Like, I do like taking photos of food and making it, capturing that interesting side, making it look even more appetizing or just as appetizing as it really is. Because even from some of my photos, I've always had people that tell me, it's like, this is something really simple. How did you get this to look so delicious? Like, I took the phone, or if we're together and we take even a phone photo, it's like, how did you do this? Why is yours not like mine? Do you have the new iPhone? I was like, no, mine's just the standard old iPhone. I don't have the newest one yet.
I think this is interesting because many people think about, oh, okay, I need to spend, sometimes even thousands of, dollars, pounds, to find the right gear, because otherwise it's impossible to take a great picture, right? Well, instead, probably everyone has a great camera in their pocket at the
Yeah.
moment, and it's more about the technique and understanding, maybe how lights impact the food, what makes a food sort of in our mind, because it's how we process that image, how makes
Yeah.
it great. I have something from your Instagram actually that I would like to share with everyone. That I think it's incredibly interesting. Let me see if I can, because this,
Curious to see which one.
yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Oh, that's one of my
I think
favorites.
this is obviously I was looking at your Instagram. It's fantastic pictures. There are actually many more that have a great story. But it's you in this, and I would like you to sort of talk about a little bit this. But, from someone that didn't take the shot, I look at this, and then you're creating a outlining certain patterns and creating those movements, like from something that honestly, I think that many people when they go through the supermarket shelf, they don't even think about that, right? And so you sort of creating a motion and make that food alive. What was the input for that shot? Tell us more about how you created that and what you use. I think it would be very interesting.
Yeah, so back to the first point about about using gear. So I think even with even low end gear or even just starter gear, it's all about knowing how to use it. So I mostly shoot with an M50, Canon M50, but I have specific prime lenses for it to help. But I only started investing in the prime lenses after I actually managed to move out of auto. But
Okay.
back to the shot. So this shot, actually, what happened is I was just going on a photo walk. So sometimes what I do just for inspiration is just go on photo walks through the open markets here in Taipei, because I really love seeing what's in season, what are the farmers having. And then there was just this old man selling his produce on the side of the street, and these were just out on like plastic crates. And I just looked at this and I was just like, oh, there's something about this pattern. Like you said, it's like waves. It feels like you're walking through a forest, kind of. So, and I just really thought it was interesting because, like, oh, this is not a particular angle that we see often in food. And then it also kind of reminds me of, like, I really enjoy hiking as well. So I was like, oh, this feels like I'm outside again. So that was kind of the inspiration for the shot. And also it's the play of light and shadows as well that caught me.
And so obviously you sort of pictured that shot way before taking the shot. You were just stepping by, and you noticed that, and you understood there was an opportunity to play with the lights and to play with the patterns, also to remind of, I would say, the fractal nature of things. Like you see the same patterns you said here, and as well as from top of the forest or on a mountain, which is great. So what did you use? Did you use your M50 for this?
I
This
used
shot?
I used my M50 on this shot, and I was shooting with a 24-70 zoom lens.
Oh, nice. Okay, and so you still sort of a Canon hardcore fans. Have you changed your gear recently? Have you upgraded to something else, or you still use your M50?
So I'm a diehard Canon fan, even though my dad did have a Canon and a Nikon, but I was shooting always with a Canon. I've never tried shooting with, I've used Panasonic before, Sony before, but it was always the point and shoot. But for food photography, I just knew, and like I was like, Canon. I gotta go with Canon. So right now, my Canon M50 had a small injury, so it's in repair at the Canon repair center. Luckily, it's not going to cost me, and the camera is fine. It's just the outside plastic case got a little bit injured from using on a tripod and had a small accident. But I recently upgraded to a secondhand Canon Mark IV. Oh no, 5D Mark IV. So I'm super excited for that one.
Top of the line. What was the sort of the driver behind that decision to go with the 5D Mark IV? What would you think that in what way will help you achieving better results?
So with my M50, it's a crop sensor because it's a mirrorless camera, so it's APS-C only. So I felt it would be nice because I've done shoots for clients before, and it's also handy to have two cameras. So granted, you don't need to buy top of the line immediately because I did quite the big jump. Since I bought it secondhand, and you as well will know, David, from buying secondhand, it's like you can get some good deals if you.
I'm guilty of that. I have a strong preference for secondhand, I have to say.
And as an Asian, we love a bargain. So if we can hunt for a bargain, we will do it. So, and luckily, just from kind of like looking around, and I've had a friend of a friend that also works in media. They asked me if I wanted to get a secondhand, and the one that they offered was way too expensive. And then this one I found about maybe 2 weeks ago, like right during the same time that my camera got injured. So I was like, I guess this is the universe helping me in a way. And I didn't consider any other ones in between. I mean, I was very tempted for the EOS R because I've used it before, and I liked it because it also has a digital EVF. But at the same time, I didn't want to buy full price yet, because actually what I'm trying to save from my gigs is to add more lenses. So I was like, okay, for body wise, let's kind of hold back a little bit. But I think just from what other food photographers have been shooting and that they have recommended, they say like, just don't consider any other, just go get a secondhand 5D. So I was even looking at the Mark IIIs, and the Mark IIIs are significantly cheaper as well. But I saw the Mark IV, and because it was just a good deal, I just had to take it. It was in good condition. It is in great condition.
Fantastic. Have you already used it on a shoot? Like have you already took some pictures for a client, or just tested it out?
No, not for a client yet. I'm really excited looking forward to take it to a client and be like, hello, me and my 5D are here, and my M50 as well, because I'm still keeping the M50 anyways. That one's also great for travel. But no, I've played around it. I play with it on my own so far, and I enjoy the fact. I was like, wow, even with a 50 prime lens, the difference in like, because now it's full frame, I was like, oh, of course, this is why I don't have to step so much further. I was confused. I was like wondering, I was like, with the M50, why do I have to like stand almost at the other side of the road to get the actual shot? And then here it's like, okay, I don't have to step back that much. So I do love all the extra little tweaks that you can do, and that you can do a lot of the manual adjustments on the outside, whereas on M50 you kind of have to do it on the screen. Yeah,
this is something that I think some not just Canon but other manufacturers sort of regretted a little bit. They thought that the move was even for photographers or for people that are really interested, was to move everything on the screen, so limiting the buttons outside. You control everything like the same way that you use obviously your smartphone. And I think that they faced some backlash from photographers saying, no, this doesn't work for me. I want my buttons on everywhere around the camera. And as you can see, they're now, even the most recent, like they have extended the number of options, physical button outside the camera. So yeah, I think that didn't work particularly. And I use an M50 as well as a sort of an all-around camera, mostly for videos. I have to say, I mean, I love it. It's so easy to to use, and it's so tiny, even with an adapter, even with the lens, to the point that it becomes a little bit ridiculous when you have a 70 to 200 millimeters, and you have like, this is the camera and this is the lens, and you need to balance it on a tripod, and you're afraid that it's going to break in half because the lens is too heavy. This is fascinating. Yeah,
And
so
it
do you
looks
think?
comical because it
Yeah,
looks like a
it is.
bazooka. When you have like, if you put like a 200 on an M50, it's like, wow, why is the body so small?
Yeah, yeah. You see, sometimes you see pictures on Instagram of these like sort of camera gear feed, and they have to put it upside down with the lens that is on top. There is the
Yeah.
camera, which is like minimal. It's very interesting. I think that they're also increasing the size. Generally, this is another thing. I have people reaching out to me selling sort of second-hand cameras. They say it's too small for my hand. I cannot use it. Like it's incredible. Say this is too small. Like it doesn't work for me. Please give me something. And they also reinforcing the exterior, so they're more resistant. They're becoming waterproof. So yeah, it's like smartphone. They went super small and now they're getting a little bit
Getting big
bigger again.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. So sorry, do you take videos at all in addition to your photography? Do you create that type of content as well?
Right now, I'm starting to branch to do a little bit of video, but more like GIFs or stop motion. Like real-time video, I haven't started dabbling in yet. I am going to start looking into it because I do feel like everyone's moving more towards video, and I guess it's always an extra skill. And with photography, it's a bit like once you learn manual, it doesn't mean it's the end. It's like you still keep learning.
Yeah.
Like every day I'm learning something new, especially with like the new my 5D. I'm like, okay, how do I use this? Because all the buttons now, because on the M50 it's on the left, right? Most of some of the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the 5D it's everything on the right. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's
So
what I find. Obviously, to be honest, I am very, very new to the photography world. I'm incredibly fascinated, but I think it's one of the domain that, if you just turn YouTube on, to say the least, there are such an incredible in-depth guide to do absolutely anything to a professional degree. I was incredibly surprised. I mean, I used to work in other technical domains. I've never seen the amount of resources available for free on the net to move from zero to hero in just a minimal amount of time. There's so much that is incredible. Do you recommend? There's anything that people should sort of familiarize with? Obviously, you started with the mentorship. It didn't come through, but obviously people need to learn. It's creativity, but also a skill, especially
yes,
a technical skill. What would you recommend to people that are very interested in maybe in photography in general, and maybe more specifically in food photography? Is there any online resources that you recommend? What would you go about if you were to start again with your knowledge?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I winded up taking a course. I've taken a few courses. I've done a lot of YouTube watching as well. So the woman that was offering the mentorship, I still follow her anyways, and actually from her I did learn also how to edit on Lightroom. So that's a whole different other thing in edit and photography. You can find her on Instagram at TwoLoves Studio, and then there's also the woman that I learned I think the course that really pushed me forward with food styling, especially, and understanding, photography is all about reading light. And this was by at the Little Plantation. You can also find her on Instagram, and she also has a podcast. And then on YouTube, especially because we're on YouTube anyways, the main one that I would recommend is at the Bite Shot. So it's run by Joni Simon, and she shows a lot of BTS, so behind the scenes of her shoots. And she also, with her, I think I also picked up a lot about understanding what gear to get for artificial lighting. Because I'm actually a natural light photographer. I prefer natural light.
Yeah.
But some clients also, sometimes you can't control the sun. So you have to kind of figure out. So she has a great site. She has a great page that has all resources per budget and what kind of gear you could get if you want to start having artificial light. So I highly recommend her, and her videos are great. She also makes great funny stop motion videos.
That's great. Make sure to include this in the description. So what you're now that you've been doing this for a few years, like so what your approach? You arrive on say on set or where would things need to happen. So how early you arrive? What do you have a process, a checklist, something that you do before making sure that everything is prepped? And how long does it take to prep? And what do we need to sort of think about when we prepare ourselves for a full photography shot?
I think even though like for creatives are usually a little bit all over the place, but when it comes to a shoot, I think I become very type A person where I will have like an Excel sheet or some sort of spreadsheet with like a tick list of everything that I need to have done, just because it's very easy to miss out on something. Ideally for a shoot, I always would have an assistant just so they can help, for example, moving with some accessories, bounce boards, or helping with the lighting adjustment. But ideally is you want to scope the place at least the day before, or on the day that with the client that you arrange, just to have an idea of the space. Because if the shoot is happening in their space, you want to have an idea what the lighting, what time is the lighting that you're using if you're shooting with natural light, what kind of props they have, or do you have to bring anything extra? So then that all goes into your list, so you know what to bring, and then what you don't have to bring, because that also will affect also when you do the costing. Also how far it takes to get there. So you want to budget that. I try to arrive at least 20 to 30 minutes, but depending, because sometimes I'll shoot right when the restaurant is going to open, because they're going to prep the food for me. So I'll probably just arrive right when they open, and then I'll need about 30 minutes to set everything up for it.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's I think this is very helpful for everyone. So that it's all about the creative side, sometimes, but then there is so much preparation. Like people don't see, what it takes. And also, I think one thing that I remember we talked about it before, like it's not just showing up and taking a shot, like and because of that, there's prep time, there is editing time. So how would you help someone that needs to find obviously a price for an hourly rate or a sort of an entire job rate? I think it's very difficult for someone that has the talent, understand, but then say, how can I start and making it maybe at the beginning just a side hustle and potentially can morph into a career. I think that what is really missing in the world of creatives, it's the boring and sometimes difficult side of, okay, but I need to get paid.
This is wonderful, but I need to pay bills.
Exactly, and this is a difficult conversation sometimes for someone that is all about making art and putting a price tag on his or her time. Do you have any sort of advice on that for someone that is starting out?
There's quite a bit. I mean, depending especially where you are, you want to kind of feel out what is the ballpark prices, because again, for me personally, I don't really agree with working for free even if you're starting out, because that already cheapens you. It's really hard, especially if you have a client that likes you in the end. It's really hard to get them to pay then.
Yeah, of course.
So and maybe this is why sometimes like you want to not that you want to show that there's a production, but that there is a big production out there that's outside from just, because it's very easy to show up, even with a phone or camera, just like take a few snaps and leave. But all the gear that comes in, like for example, I'll have a shot list, so I know what are the things that I'm shooting, what angles am I shooting at. If I have to check my time as well, because like you said, you have to go leave, and you also have to do the editing, and you have to also follow up, and if there's anything that's missing, there might be a reshoot happening. So these are all things that you kind of have to think about when you're pricing. And I haven't also perfected yet what's the formula for it. So again, I guess the best way is figuring out more or less what is the pricing that people are offering in the area that you're in, because I can't speak for Taiwan and for other countries by the price that I have. What I do is I always need to do it case by case. So I need to see what are the client's needs, what is their budget, if they can tell me. And then we can always like work around with maybe we don't need to bring extra gear. So for example, if I don't have to bring any artificial lighting, that already cuts on the price. So you want to think about, okay, if I have to bring extra gear, it's a price. If I have to take the commute, it's also a price. So you want to think of all these things. You might want to write it down, like if I went, what is the timeline of my day, and then see if there's anything that you can consider billable or not. But there are photographers as well that just sell by package. So they'll be like, okay, maybe $20 per photo, US, I guess, depending on what part where you are. I think for beginners, you can always just start pricing with a package photo and see like, oh, I have a pack of 10, this pack is 5 photos, this one's 10, and just set different prices and see how they feel. And if customers want to negotiate, you can also always be open to negotiate. I like having a more precise pricing just because I also want my clients to know what they're getting. And then for example, if we need follow-up meetings or etc. So the thing is, I would also advise trying to find a good contract.
Yeah, always good to get some legal advice.
Yeah, the admin side always freaks every creative out a little bit.
It is, but again, it's essential. It's you're self-employed. This is bookkeeping and contracts, finances. At the end, you need to keep the artificial light on, right? One way.
Yeah, well, because sometimes even as a food photographer, I shoot at my own studio, my home studio. Then, so I don't have to. So that's also a different price, but that involves maybe I have to cook the food. So it's like you're cooking, you're styling, you're taking the photo, then you're editing. So you're like a lot in one.
You need to be flexible, I guess. Like, it's not all about, I'm the artist, I don't do that. You need to be able to do a little bit of everything, definitely at the beginning until you have assistant and a more, established production. And obviously related to that, now that we're shooting in June 2020, and obviously the COVID-19 epidemic is still in full swing, although, in Taiwan, you guys did a phenomenal job. Very differently to what happened and it's still happening in the UK, I would say. But I would in any event, I think that this probably had an effect on the overall demand, and also how now you would approach a shoot. Like, what's the situation like? Because I have people in the UK, photographers, wedding photographers especially, that obviously they've seen all their work completely cancelled or postponed of many months. And I don't know, from a food photographer perspective in Taiwan, has anything changed in terms of demand, and also how would you approach that type of job?
There was definitely a dip, especially in the beginning of the year, even though Taiwan at the moment has less than 500 cases. We don't have any community spread so far, but at the beginning of the year, I guess maybe until like April, it was a bit of a dip. Everything was very quiet. I did have a few like requests, but then they didn't get confirmed. They're like, oh, we're not doing it now. So they kind of got postponed. So I might have to follow up with them soon. But others that are remote, I've been doing mostly like editing work or just shooting on my own, just creating content. Because out of safety as well, I didn't really want to go outside. I was like, okay, let's just avoid as well for social distance ourselves for a while. But now it's picking back up. I haven't had a lot of new inquiries yet, but because summer is starting, so I've seen a few new restaurants that are opening. So I'm also prospecting because I'm also a foodie in the end. So I do like to check out what new restaurants are popping out. And that's also how it helps me generate like leads or clients, because they see me out there. They're like interested, they ask about it. So
yeah, I mean, but that's great. Obviously, it's combining different passions and continue to create content. I think it's great that independently you're out there. You continue to populate your website, your Instagram with great shots. That it doesn't matter if there's a virus outside. And obviously, people see at the restaurants, and you can even show them the picture you just took in maybe just a few minutes, and the quality of that. And that could be just a conversation starter, like that maybe leads to something else. I think it's great that type of initiative. But
ironically, what usually happens are friends that are with me, if we're at a meal, they will tell people that I'm a food photographer. They're like, she's a really good food photographer, look at her Instagram, show them. And I'm always a little bit like, oh, okay. And then they'll wind out, either I gain a follower and then we comment and talk about it. But it's nice. It's networking in a way, and I'll enjoy it anyways, because I also like to know like what's the inspiration behind the food. So I think that also helps.
Of course.
To like learn a little bit of perspective from like the chef side or the restaurant inspiration, and also kind of like you get a vibe of the city, or like what is kind of trending in the food industry.
Well, definitely photography is also about storytelling, right? That you need to understand the context and being able to place that shot in the context and have a feel for, again, what's hot, what's trending, and what kind of vibe maybe that restaurant, that chef would like to project. Like it's so important to get into that element as well. But obviously mainly you're focused on food, but you're also taking other great shots. And again, I took some liberty and looked at other shots. The one absolutely that captured my eye. Let me see if I can pull it on the screen.
Ooh. Ah, yes, I love that one.
I mean, this is fantastic. It's the colors, the location. I mean, obviously, you were not in the studio, I would say.
No, this was outdoors.
And you can, I mean, this is, I mean, I don't know if this picture is available on certain sites to be purchased. That's great. It's so evocative. You can see that it's this person looking at the horizon. It could be anything. Reaching the top, looking at the at the vast world. It's incredible. Tell us how did you capture this one?
So actually, this is from the top of the tallest peak in Taipei. So Taiwan, sorry, in Taiwan, Jade Mountain, which is 3,900 meters above sea level. So I went on this hike. This is the tallest peak, and I really wanted to, like, after living here the first year, one of my goals was like, I need to get to the top of that peak just to celebrate like living in Taiwan and the hiking. So that was shot with my N50. We woke up, I think, at 1:30 in the morning to make sure that we hit the summit.
Wow.
Yeah, hiking up in the dark. It was very windy just to get the sunrise. Even though unfortunately there was a lot of clouds, but it still turned out really nice. So one of the other people that was hiking buddies that was with me, he went over to the other side of the peak to get some shots. And then when I just saw him there, and I was just like, I need to capture this moment. Because for me, it feels like he's about to like walk onto the clouds as well.
Wow, that's true. That's absolutely true. It's like, finally the person ascends to the heavens. Like, that's true. It's yeah. I mean, this is why I guess so many people are incredibly attracted by photography. Obviously there's a lot of prep, and you need to hike in the dark to the highest peak.
Commitment
in your country. So it's not like, okay, I'll wake up early and that's it. There's a lot of commitment for those seconds. And again, as you said, it wasn't something necessarily prepped, right? You just follow. Yeah. That person and you were ready. So use an M50 with what lens? Do you remember what lens you used to?
I was using its kit lens actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's the 1255.
I think it's 15 to 45.
15,
I think.
Yeah, 15 to 45.
EFM.
Yeah. EFM. Also, I was doing with EFM.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. I mean, I know that lots of people are like, oh, this is the kit lenses. I mean, you can take incredible shots with that, and you have a pretty good zoom range. But that is really great. And as I said, if once you learn the skill, you can apply it to various different options. That's absolutely great. One other thing that I think is very, very interesting to learn for everybody that is watching or will be watching in the future. Say now, obviously you have a few years under the belt. You've seen different aspects, and you're doing it. You continue to do it. What would be the advice that you would give to someone that, okay, it's 2020. I'm stuck at home, and you know what? I really would like to get into photography. What would the advice be to sort of speed up that process of learning?
I think is if you shoot as often as you can. Okay. Shoot as often as you can, but like shoot and then study the photos that you shoot. Try to shoot playing with the settings. So there's always a constant argument of which setting is best. Some people like to shoot in AV mode, some people in P, some people in M. I shoot in M, even when I'm outdoors. I don't mind. I'm already used to it. But shooting often, I think, makes a massive difference because in a way, you're also studying how to read light. And I think that in photography, I think the most imperative thing is understanding how to read light, how it works. I think recently someone asked me about like, every time when I take this photo, like there's a shadow, what do I do about like I have a shadow? I was like, well, if you're in that angle, how about you change it around? Like, think about it. Like, light bounces off everywhere. So you want to think about, okay, if I move to this way, does the shadow move? So, because we all know, like, midday, we know the shadow becomes very, very small. But why? So that's I'm always like constantly like reading light, seeing like, okay, at this time the light looks perfect, I'm gonna shoot. You know, there's a reason why we call golden hour as well as the best shooting hour. Wedding photographers know, like, golden hour or like really early morning hours are like the best light.
That I think again it's great because it's the focus is on something simple. Like you can have almost any camera and you take the picture and just to read the light and understand how it works, or rather than moving on to some crazy like setup and yeah, and of course there's a lot of editing. Lightroom, I think it's a great software. You do Lightroom, maybe to Photoshop. I mean, there's so much that you can do in post, but what you know, the essence of understanding how light bounces off and creates those elements that sometimes are, you know, desirable and sometimes are not desirable. And as you said, take as many shots as you want. Do you used to show all the pictures, or you were like, no, I'm afraid, I don't want to for this picture to be seen by anybody else? What was the
I think the complaint that I've gotten is that I have too high standards now. Because people are like, no, this photo looks good. And I was like, no, it does not. Like, I do not like it. They're like, why? It's like, no, there's something's off. I think the more you shoot, you also get a little bit more picky because you start understanding a little bit better what you like, the style you like, and that even comes with the editing. So, you know, most purists will be like, oh, but, you know, I like the photo just out of the camera as is. It's not. I mean, a lot of the photos that I like on when I shoot from my camera is like, I love it as is when I see on my LCD screen. I want to go to editing. It's like, okay, I want to get that potential out even more. So it's not just understanding settings and like, you know, I don't want to edit. Sometimes I do have photos that I just don't edit as well, and I like how it is. But yeah, sometimes you want to edit a little bit, especially when there's like the chromatic aberration or some lens distortion, especially like if you're shooting even with your phone, you know, you're doing that wide shot. Sometimes, you know, some of the straight lines don't look straight anymore.
Yeah.
So you want to adjust those. Yeah, the crop. Yeah. Even with some of the lenses.
Did you learn the sort of editing aspect by yourself, or did you take some courses, or you know, what was your approach to that?
Right in the beginning, when I wasn't really still kind of a hobbyist, because of Instagram, I started editing using VSCO app, the VSCO app. So it's just like from mobile shooting and then just editing it there. Or sometimes what I'll do, if I downloaded the photo, just airdrop it to my phone and then edit on the app. Because they had like a filter and I'll just tweak it a little bit just to make sure there was a consistency in the photos. But then afterwards, you know, with a lot of people like, oh, you know, you should really pick up and learn like Lightroom. And I got curious because I used to be a graphic designer, so I know how to use like Photoshop, Illustrator, but like Lightroom we never really touched. I was like, okay, I could do it on Photoshop, but you know, Photoshop doesn't really like have a library, so until you compile everything, it will take you a long time, especially if you're like shutter happy like I am. You'll take like 300 photos at once of something and just like one of them. So Lightroom, I did take a course as well to kind of help me improve a little bit better understanding, because there's so many different settings. It's like there's tons of toggles for you to understand what they do and why they're doing it. So after doing the course, and mostly it was just understanding what each function does, like each tool on Lightroom does. It helps me know better like how I want to edit. So, you know, now I'm starting to create my own presets, so then it also streamlines my editing time.
I guess again, like photography, like anything else, it's a process. You continue to do it, and as a paradox, the more you learn about it, the more you realize that it's, you know, there's there to learn. And then again, it's maybe, I guess it's part of the fun that you take out of it. It's not like, okay, it's a done deal, I know what to do, I have my preset, that's it. You can dig even deeper and create, and sometimes you make changes and edit it that only another expert eye will be able to catch, right? But maybe you do it anyway, because that's how your eye has been trained to detect, and you cannot do anything else, right? It will always be there if you leave it. So it's fascinating.
Because I think even sometimes, like when I'm done editing a photo, I like on Lightroom you can see like the before and after, and I'm always like so happy. I'm like, yes, look at this. this is the potential that is what I saw in my head. Especially even when if you're shooting a lot with the M50, because it has the AVF, like when you're doing the settings, you can see them already. And with the M50, it's funny because it's been with the 5D, it's been funny because if you're on the viewfinder, you don't really see the settings change immediately.
Of course.
So unless you're using the actual the LCD screen.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is interesting, because it's kind of like you have to unlearn a little bit, because if you get used to using the EVF. So I guess that's why some people prefer the EOS R, but then the battery life just goes away so fast. But I still like the feel of it, feeling, like back when we had like film cameras, they had to like 24 shots.
I guess it probably used to give more. We used to give more meaning to that, like limited amount of shots, right? And you sort of say, okay, this is also why some film cameras, like for the consumer, like the Instax, are back in fashion, because you can touch it and it's limited, right? Rather than taking a million shots.
Well, it's funny because with the instant cameras, you take one shot, it's like, oh, this is perfect. And then with the digital ones, you're like, digital ones, you're like taking constantly more and more and more. You're like, no, I don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. It's like, why are you just not photogenic when it's a digital thing?
Yeah, that's true. Yone, this has been a fantastic, conversation, and I'm sure that I found it super insightful. I took some notes. I'm gonna check, all the channels you recommended, the software. One last thing: when can people find you on the internet? Your Instagram, your Facebook, your website. If they want to, to talk to you, maybe book a gig. What's the best way to contact you?
The easiest one is you'll find me on Instagram. So for Instagram at Flavor Journey, flavor with a U, because the one without the U, the American spelling was taken. So I'm using the British one, obviously. Yes. So on Instagram, Flavor Journey, my website, flavorjourney.co. I just started my Twitter, so it's A Flavor Journey, at A Flavor Journey. And also there's my Facebook page, which is also A Flavor Journey. So you can find me there. But on my website, you get to see at least some recipes of things that I make as well, which are try to make them veggie friendly or vegan friendly most of the time.
Interesting. Well, obviously everything will be in the description of the video, so no worries about that. And Yone, thank you very much for taking the time and for being the first. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh no, thank you. This has been super fun. I thought I was gonna be like very nervous, but like I'm really chill right now. And then, I could totally see this video could go on for like another 2 hours of just us talking about.
I mean, this is just episode number 1 and our first conversation. At some point we're gonna match Joe Rogan's duration, so we're gonna talk for 2-3 hours nonstop. that's the end goal. Like today we stop around 45, but I'm sure you'll be back on the show very soon. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.